In a peaceful Boulder neighborhood, beneath the starry night sky, the soft laughter of a family echoed from their home. Little JonBenet Ramsey, a 6-year-old beauty queen, had just celebrated Christmas with her parents and older brother. It was the winter of 1996, a time when America was mourning the loss of rap star Tupac Shakur, and Space Jam was dominating theaters. As the country prepared for the new year, the joyous spirit of the holiday season lingered in the crisp winter air. Sadly, JonBenet wouldn't get to celebrate the new year. She wouldn't even get to see the next morning, as her life was tragically cut short that very night. Within the walls of their home, an odd silence would soon shatter the whole atmosphere. A handwritten ransom note would be discovered, and things would escalate to be one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in all America. Welcome back to the chilling realm of True Crime Expresso, where we travel to the realm of solved and unsolved crimes and haunting mysteries from all corners of the planet. In today's video, we will dive into the unsolved murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey. We'll uncover the intense investigations that followed, as detectives tirelessly searched for answers. Countless theories emerged, intertwining with legal battles, making this one of the most perplexing cold cases in history. JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia, to her parents JonBenet Ramsey and Patricia Ramsey, also known as Patsy. She was the younger of 2 children, with her older brother Burke being 9 years old during the time of her sister's disappearance. JonBenet would participate in beauty pageants from a young age, where her blonde hair, poised demeanor, and stylish costumes earned her numerous titles. Her father was a successful businessman, and her mother, a former beauty queen, provided her with a comfortable and privileged upbringing in their wealthy home. John Ramsey held the position of president at Access Graphics, a computer software company that later became a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. He had been previously married, but his first marriage ended in divorce in 1978, and his 2 adult children from that marriage resided elsewhere. In 1991, John relocated with his second wife, Patsy, and their family to Boulder, where Access Graphics headquarters were situated. Patsy Ramsey was deeply involved in JonBenet's participation in child beauty pageants in Boulder, leading her to achieve several titles, including America's Royale Miss, Little Miss Charlevoix, Little Miss Colorado, Colorado State, All-Star Kids Cover Girl, and National Tiny Miss Beauty. JonBenet's active role in these pageants, along with Patsy's pageant mother approach, garnered media attention, particularly after JonBenet's tragic murder. On the early morning of December 26, 1996, John and Patsy Ramsey were met with a harrowing discovery in their Boulder, Colorado home. Their 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet Ramsey, was not in her bed and was nowhere to be found. The family had woken up early that day in preparation for a trip, and it was Patsy who stumbled upon a ransom note on the staircase, demanding a sum of $118,000 in exchange for their daughter's safe return. The ransom amount nearly mirrored John's Christmas bonus from the previous year. Investigators delved into various theories surrounding this amount, including scrutiny of employees at Access Graphics who could have had knowledge of John's prior bonus. They even considered the possibility that the sum was a reference to Psalm 118. The ransom note itself was quite lengthy, which prompted the FBI to announce that it was highly unusual for such a note to be composed at the scene of a crime. Authorities became increasingly convinced that the note was staged, primarily due to the absence of fingerprints, aside from Patsy's and those who had handled it. Both the ransom note and a practice draft had been penned using materials from the Ramsey home. A Colorado Bureau of Investigation report suggested that there were indications that the author of the ransom note was Patricia Ramsey, though it did not definitively conclude this. Forensic pathologist Michael Baden also said that in his 60-year career, he had never come across a note quite like this, and doubted it was written by an external stranger. A federal court, meanwhile, cast doubt on the notion that Patsy was the author of the note. Citing the findings of 6 certified handwriting experts, the court criticized the involvement of self-proclaimed experts without credentials, who accused Patsy without any hard evidence. At the time, the only individuals known to have been in the house were her immediate family, Patsy, John, and their son Burke. The ransom note explicitly discouraged contact with the police or friends, yet Patsy made a 911 call at 5:52 a.m. She also reached out to family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the call, arriving at the Ramsey residence within 3 minutes and conducting an initial search that revealed no signs of forced entry. In the middle of the crisis, Officer Rick French decided to check the Ramsey residence's basement, and there he encountered a door secured by a wooden latch. Pausing momentarily, he chose not to open it. Later, French would explain that he was searching for a possible exit route used by the kidnapper. But the presence of the closed inside peg led him to dismiss this option. As JonBenet remained missing, John Ramsey began the arrangements to comply with the ransom demand. A forensic team was dispatched to the house, initially operating under the belief that the child had been kidnapped. To preserve evidence, JonBenet's bedroom was cordoned off, while no similar precautions were taken in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends, victim advocates, and the Ramsey family's minister arrived at the home to offer their support. Visitors handled and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, potentially erasing crucial evidence in the process. Around 8 a.m., Boulder detective Linda Arndt arrived at the scene, awaiting instructions from the purported kidnapper. However, despite the preparations for ransom payment, no attempt was ever made by anyone to claim the money. At 1 p.m., Detective Arndt requested that John Ramsey and Fleet White, a family friend, conduct a search of the house to see if anything seemed unusual. Their search began in the basement, where John decided to inspect the latched door that Officer French had overlooked earlier. It was right there that John discovered the lifeless body of his daughter, JonBenet. She was found with her mouth covered by duct tape, a nylon cord tightly bound around her wrists and neck, and her torso hidden beneath a white blanket. John gently picked up JonBenet and carried her upstairs. Regrettably, this act unintentionally contaminated the crime scene and disrupted crucial forensic evidence for the returning forensics team. Following this grim discovery, each member of the Ramsey family provided handwriting, blood, and hair samples to the police. Both John and Patsy endured a preliminary interview lasting more than 2 hours, while their son Burke was also interviewed within the first couple of weeks, following JonBenet's tragic death. JonBenet Ramsey's autopsy revealed the cause of her death, a combination of strangulation and a skull fracture. The official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. While there was no clear evidence, there were signs of potential sexual assault. Her lower private area appeared to have been wiped with a cloth. A makeshift garrote, made from nylon cord and a broken paintbrush handle, had been used to strangle her. Part of the paintbrush was found in Patsy's art supplies, but a portion of it was missing. The autopsy also showed that JonBenet had eaten pineapple a few hours before her death. Pictures from that day showed a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. However, neither of her parents remembered putting the bowl there or giving her pineapple. The police found fingerprints from JonBenet's brother, Burke Ramsey, on the bowl. The Ramseys said that Burke had slept through the night until he was woken up a couple of hours after the police arrived. In December 2003, forensic investigators made a breakthrough in the JonBenet Ramsey case. They extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBenet's underwear to establish a DNA profile. This DNA profile did not match the DNA of any member of the Ramsey family. Instead, it belonged to an unknown male person. The DNA sample was entered into the FBI's database, which contained millions of DNA profiles. But there was no match. In October 2016, new forensic analysis using more sensitive techniques revealed that the original DNA had genetic markers from 2 people other than JonBenet. A lead investigator for the Boulder District Attorney's Office, James Kolar, pointed out that there were additional traces of male DNA found on the cord and paintbrush, which were not initially mentioned by Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey. Kolar also noted that 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals were discovered during testing. Some experts, like former FBI profiler Candace DeLong and former Adams County District Attorney Bob Grant, believe that the presence of this DNA, appearing consistently in multiple locations and on different surfaces, could point to the killer. However, forensic pathologist Michael Baden said that trace amounts of DNA can end up on surfaces through various, non-suspicious means. He argued that the presence of DNA alone does not prove a stranger's involvement in the murder. Throughout the investigation, various suspects were considered, with the initial focus on JonBenet's parents, John and Patsy Ramsey. However, by October 1997, the Boulder police had over 1,600 individuals in their index of persons of interest for the case. However, the initial investigation into the case had several errors, which complicated efforts to find the culprit. These errors included the loss and contamination of evidence, a shortage of experienced and technically proficient staff involved in the investigation, the sharing of evidence with the Ramseys, and delayed informal interviews with the parents. In an attempt to shed light on the case, Detective Lou Smith came out of retirement in early 1997 to assist the Boulder County District Attorney's Office. In May 1998, he presented his findings to the Boulder Police along with other DA's office staff, eventually concluding that the evidence did not support the idea of the Ramseys' guilt. However, the police department still believed that the Ramseys could be the culprits. The DA's office wanted to take control of the investigation, which led to tense relations between the police and the DA's office. As a solution, Colorado Governor Roy Romer intervened and appointed Michael Caine as a special prosecutor to gather a grand jury. Two of the lead investigators involved in the case, Lou Smith and Steve Thomas, held opposing views. Smith resigned because he believed that the investigation had incompetently overlooked the possibility of an intruder's involvement. Meanwhile, Thomas resigned due to perceived interference from the DA's office and a lack of support for the police investigation. In September 1998, a grand jury was gathered to consider whether to indict the Ramseys on charges related to the case. In 1999, the grand jury returned what is known as a true bill, which basically means that there was probable cause to charge the Ramseys with child endangerment, leading to their daughter's death, and with obstructing a murder investigation. However, Boulder County District Attorney Alex Hunter chose not to prosecute the Ramseys. He believed that he could not meet the higher standard of proving their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, which is required for a criminal conviction. Mary Lacey, the Boulder County District Attorney, took control of the investigation from the police on December 26, 2002. She also believed that an intruder murdered JonBenet, not Mrs. Ramsey. On July 9, 2008, the Boulder District Attorney's Office revealed that, due to advancements in DNA sampling and testing techniques, the Ramsey family members were excluded as suspects in the case. In October 2010, the Boulder police reopened the cold case. However, despite conducting new interviews, no significant new information was found. As of September 2016, Boulder Police Chief confirmed that the investigation into JonBenet's death remained an active homicide case. In 2015, Mark Beckner, the former Boulder Police Chief, disagreed with the exoneration of the Ramseys. He believed that it was premature to exclude anyone based on tiny evidence, and that the unknown DNA found on JonBenet's clothing should be the main focus instead. Over the years, two main theories surrounding the death of JonBenet Ramsey have surfaced. One theory, often referred to as the family member theory, initially led Boulder police to focus almost only on the parents, John and Patsy Ramsey. According to a retired FBI profiler, statistics suggest that in cases of child homicide, there is a higher probability that a family member or caregiver is involved. Police lacked evidence indicating a forced entry into the home but did observe signs of staging, such as the ransom note. On top of all that, the Ramseys were not cooperative. In response to that, they gave perhaps the strangest explanation. They said that they were afraid the case would not be properly investigated for intruders, and that they would end up being prime suspects. One specific theory within this family member theory indicates that Patsy Ramsey may have struck JonBenet in a fit of rage following a bedwetting episode and subsequently strangled her, mistakenly believing she was already dead. However, there was no known history of Patsy having uncontrolled anger. JonBenet's brother, Burke Ramsey, who was 9 years old at the time of her death, has repeatedly denied any involvement. He said, "We didn't get spanked. Nothing of the sort. Nothing close. Nothing near laying a finger on us, let alone killing your child." Burke was interviewed by investigators at least 3 times, with the first 2 interviews not raising concerns about his involvement. A review by a child psychologist showed that the Ramseys had a healthy, caring family relationship. The second theory surrounding JonBenet Ramsey's tragic death is known as the intruder theory. Law enforcement and prosecutors explored leads related to intruders, partly due to the presence of an unidentified boot mark discovered in the basement room where JonBenet's body was found. Several people were initially considered persons of interest in this theory. These included Bill McReynolds, a neighbor who had portrayed Santa Claus, Chris Wolf, a local reporter whose then-girlfriend reported him as a suspect, Linda Hoffman Pugh, the family's housekeeper, and Michael Helgoth, a man who died in what appeared to be a suicide shortly after JonBenet's death. DNA testing was conducted in an attempt to identify a match to the DNA recovered during JonBenet's autopsy. Detective Lou Smith, who worked on the case, evaluated the evidence and said that an intruder had committed the crime. On the night JonBenet was killed, there were 2 windows left slightly open for electrical cords from the Christmas lights, a broken basement window, and 1 unlocked door. Smith's theory was that the intruder entered through the broken basement window. However, critics questioned this theory, pointing out that cobwebs were still in the basement window and the steel grate covering it. Cobwebs were also found in the tracks of various windows, and some sills had dust and debris. Smith believed the intruder subdued JonBenet with a stun gun and took her to the basement, where she was murdered, and a ransom note was left. Smith's theory received support from former FBI agent John E. Douglas, who had been hired by the Ramsey family. Alexis Val Reich, formerly known as John Mark Carr, was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand on August 15, 2006, following a false confession to the murder of JonBenet. At the time of her arrest, Reich was a 41-year-old schoolteacher. In her confession, Reich claimed to have drugged, sexually assaulted, and accidentally murdered JonBenet. However, the police didn't buy it. Reich's confession had only basic facts that were publicly known and lacked additional convincing details. Her claim that JonBenet was drugged contradicted the autopsy findings, which showed no drugs in the child's body. DNA evidence also did not link Reich to the crime scene or JonBenet's body. On October 26, 2006, Reich reached out to Bill Hammonds of Bill's List, seeking a literary agent to assist in publishing a manuscript that she described as potentially controversial. In the years that followed, Reich used various pen names, including Daxus the Conqueror, Darkpruns, and Alexis. She later revealed that she was transgender and legally changed her name to Alexis Valoran Reich. There were also allegations and legal disputes involving Reich's intentions and associations. Samantha Spiegel, who obtained a restraining order against Reich, alleged that Reich's gender reassignment was part of a scheme to get closer to young girls in a purported child sexual cult called the Immaculates. John and Patsy Ramsey faced 2 defamation lawsuits stemming from their book, The Death of Innocence, published in 2001. These suits were brought by people mentioned in the book who had been investigated by the Boulder police as suspects in the JonBenet Ramsey case. Eventually, both lawsuits were dismissed. In September 2016, during an interview with CBS Detroit and in the documentary TV program The Case of JonBenet Ramsey, forensic pathologist Werner Spitz accused Burke of killing his sister. In response, on October 6, 2016, Burke filed a defamation lawsuit against Spitz, seeking $150 million in punitive and compensatory damages. On December 28, Burke Ramsey's legal team filed an additional civil lawsuit that accused CBS of defamation of character. They sought $250 million in compensatory damages and $500 million in punitive damages. In January 2018, a judge denied CBS's motion to dismiss, allowing the lawsuit to proceed. The case was settled in January 2019 to the satisfaction of all parties, but no other information was made to the public. The JonBenet Ramsey case remains one of the most enduring mysteries in American criminal history. Despite the passage of time and multiple legal battles, the question of who was responsible for JonBenet's death remains unanswered. What do you think happened on that fateful night in Boulder, Colorado? Are there other aspects of this case that intrigue you or questions you'd like to explore? Share your thoughts and comments down below. We'll see you on the next one.